Still love the children's corner, actually. Sort of simple.
Known as the adult corner. Now,
the adult corner.
okay, so we might start off with wonderful competition winners. Sean, so, yeah, we thought your question was really good, so
Cool, thanks.
well thought out.
Considering the nature and the content of the film, do you think that the timing of Tomorrow When the War Began will encourage more young people to pay more attention to foreign affairs?
Well, absolutely. I think that, you know, Australians have harboured this fear of being invaded since, like, you know, 1788 or so. So I think it brings about, particularly in this climate currently, of, you know, warfare and things like that, I think it almost sort of reignites that fear. I don't think it's going to send anybody into a panic, but I think it's going to make teenagers particularly probably prick up their ears and listen out for things, because when you witness somebody who's we're just like them, essentially. So I think that's yeah, they'll definitely start paying attention, or I would like to think they would anyway.
And also I think they'd start questioning what would they do if they were in this situation. Hopefully no one is, but you know, if this happens to them, what kind of person would they be in that sort of crisis? And I think if it does get kids involved with foreign affairs, I mean, that's great. I mean, it really should. Everyone should be aware of what's going on in the world, because it's a big place.
I think it reminds them of our history as well, because no country has ever discovered it's invaded.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, a big part of Australian history. It's a dark history, really. And I think that kind of brings about, you know, an understanding that we're sort of on borrowed time, borrowed land, to quote Midnight Oil.
Yeah. Very much.
I wonder if some people see like a parallel with Iraq, like there are Iraq teams who get caught into fighting US forces.
Well, yeah, well, I had a friend
Did you think about that parallel? Or?
Yeah, I think, well, not so much, because we sort of thought about...
It was more about the story, because it's such a great story, and this film's more about such the characters and how they react.
The war is essentially a backdrop.
Yeah, I mean, it makes these teenagers heighten the stakes and everything, so hormones fly more often than they would, and, you know, relationships end and start up quicker than they normally would. So the war becomes more of a backdrop to what they do, and then for them to grow up and become adults. Yeah.
Well, it's a priority switch, isn't it? I mean, I imagine students in, you know, sort of third world countries obviously have entirely different priorities to us.
Definitely.
Priority to, you know, have the right to freedom, to the right to food and water. And things
different sort of lifestyles.
Yeah, it's you know, you can't really compare.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Roland, your question?
Yeah, my question sort of leads on from that. I was wondering how acting the role of one of the Tomorrow When the War Began teenagers influenced your view on the ability that teens have to take on roles of leadership and responsibility in times of crisis. So,
well, I mean, the reason that John Marsden wrote these books is because he wanted to show teenagers in a positive light. Because, you know, every generation of teenagers is branded as being lousy, as being useless, as, you know, not being able to cope under pressure. And I mean, I'm sure everybody goes, oh, you know, when I was a teenager, we treated our elders with respect and da-da-da. Nobody ever does.
No, they don't.
I mean, we're respectful, but the thing is, people have this view of how they. I mean, even my mum's like that, and I think, you know, I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, no, hopefully it does. Hopefully, it shows teenagers that. I mean, thankfully, we don't have a war, or World War II, or World War I. We didn't go through anything like that, and I think that's a good thing. That we don't need something like that to show what we can do, and the teenagers need to find an outlet for that. I need. Whether it be the arts or, you know, in
like peer groups and
stuff. Anything. It doesn't matter what it is. They find an outlet for this to step up and show what they're capable of. And I think the film does a great job of that. And unfortunately, it's behind a horrible, horrible situation of a war. So yeah, hopefully, this generation, the next generation, all the generations to come, step up and show them that they're better than the generation before.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very good. All right. Well, we're going to now ask some other questions. And I'm down for this one. Now, the question is, are you or were you a member of a local library? And what was your favourite thing to do there? Now, given your previous answer about what you'd like to do with life. Yeah, second favourite.
No, I've actually never been guilty of having enjoyed that experience at a library, ever. I just love... Finished it. No, I was always ever... Because, I mean, the internet is this newfangled thing, isn't it? I mean, by the time I was 10 is probably when we first got our first computer and when we could start doing research there. So I was a member of every city I lived in, including in England. I was always a member of our public library because that's where you went to do research, where you went to read books. You know, borders and things like that weren't as accessible back then. So the idea of sort of borrowing a book that... And the thing is, what's so funny is my copy of Tomorrow When the War Began, I have from my friend who has it from a Queensland library. So it's a stolen library. But it was just such a nice reminder to me. Because it's so doggy.
What's her name?
I've got a list of these people.
But it's so, you know, it's obviously been read so many times. It was just a nice reminder for me to go, wow, this is such a love story, and to have it as a constant reminder that, you know, people love this book. Anyway, my favourite thing to do, I just love sitting in libraries because it's so peaceful. I used to love studying there when I was at high school because, you know, everybody's there to just sort of, it just feels like there's almost, the knowledge is almost kind of, you know, palatable. You can like, reach up and grab it.
Excellent.
Libraries are a place where they store books.
That's where it is.
A book is something you read.
Libraries are a great resource for fantastic books. What message would you give to young people about reading?
Do more of it. Because it's such a, I mean, there's nothing like actually holding a book, particularly hardback books. I love that feeling.
Yeah.
Just sort of, and when you get to it, you feel like such a sense of accomplishment. You pick up this sort of block of paper and wood, and you're just like, I conquered you.
Bang, yeah.
Put it down, and that's such a fantastic experience. I mean, once again, with, you know, this sort of advancement in technology, you have things like Kindles and iPads, and it doesn't compare. No, it just doesn't.
I think also diversify your reading, because in libraries there's so much. Like, as a kid, I read, but I only read Star Wars and Tomorrow books. So I limited myself to these two universes, and then but yeah, so there's so much, and the great thing about libraries is everything's there. So diversify, find new books, explore new worlds.
Yeah. Cool. If you can't afford books, because books can be quite expensive.
Yeah, well, especially.
Library.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Library.
And it's just nice. It's nice to just sit in a place that's dedicated to reading.
Yeah.
If you're going to read a book, I think it's, you know, it's better than a cafe. People are bustling in and about on their laptops, showing off.
Stuff on you.
Watch me write. No, watch me write.
So do you have any ideas that you could give libraries to get more people through the doors? Young people.
I think you should just, your advertising campaign, because teenagers nowadays, I find, love the idea of anything vintage.
Yeah.
If there's like a 70s feel to something, if there's like a Polaroid picture, they go mental for it. It's insane. I mean, you think that they'd be the other way around. I think if you just, I think that, you know, advertising campaigns should just be like, you know, go back in time and read a book sort of thing, because I know a lot of people, yeah, love that experience and like, I mean, I don't know, have a mobile phone. I love the idea of sort of, you know, being around in the 70s or something. I think it'd be sweet.
Cool. Alright.
What do you think?
I'm trying to think. I've been trying to think.
More Star Wars!
I don't know. Nowadays they got everything. I mean, you got the chains of libraries hooked together, so you can always find a book. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I always like my local library did have something, and I was like, oh damn, I'll wait till it comes. Like, no, we'll get one from so and so suburb. Like, oh really? So yeah.
You can't get away.
Yeah, exactly.
We could dress up in Star Wars outfits.
You wouldn't have to do that as long as the books are there. Don't worry.
Story time with Darth Vader.
Yeah.
You go.
Oh, yeah.
I think bringing writers down.
I think
is
it's
great.
getting, getting parents of young children to bring their children, and therefore, you know, that's something that's instilled in them, and then they want to pass it down. It's a case of adults, I don't think, take their children to libraries anymore. They bring books to them, which is great. But I think that you should also include that, you know, in their lives.
What is one aspect of your characters that you thought was important to show the audience, and how did you portray it?
Chester.
Yeah, I don't have any actually.
No, but you don't.
Yeah, no, hey.
You're a Turkish boy. You should be.
Well, I should be, but you know,
But you're
I'm
not.
blessed. Well, you know, I think the transition of Homer's, for me, from being a rebel and trouble with the law and not really having any direction in life, to going to someone that has such a clear purpose and having these skill sets that really help his group survive. I think showing that change in him and then him finding that purpose was one of the most daunting things and one of the most important things and one of the most fun things to do. So I reckon, yeah, and I think that was the way I worked through that was probably I think a lot of it came to Sturt, because he knew the story back to front, he knew the characters, every single one of them, and there wasn't a question that he couldn't answer. There wasn't an offer that he did not take on board. So he really helped me he really guided me through that whole process, and to have such a talented cast to play off, I mean, what more could you ask for? Except Caitlin, but
Yeah,
the rest of
with the exception of me.
Yeah.
No, I think the most important thing for Ellie is to show that she is an ordinary girl thrown into an extraordinary circumstance, and the way that she responds isn't a choice; it's an instinct. You know, I think that she's reluctant to be the hero, but she doesn't see any other option for her, I think. And you know, she might be empowered and she might be courageous, but she's also terrified and she's also vulnerable and she's also scared. I think you've got to strike up an equal balance, because if a character you see is constantly victorious, then you don't ever feel scared for them and you don't invest. You're just like, they'll be fine. And if they're always weak, yeah. And if you're constantly, you know, fretting and you're, you know, desperately worrisome, then people think, how the hell is she managing? So you've got to strike up an equal balance.
It's me again. Have you read the entire series, and if so, does knowing what will ultimately happen to your character affect how you chose to portray them?
I hadn't read the early chronicles before I started filming. I had read 1 to 7, but I'd read it so long ago that it didn't really. I mean, I knew moments of the film and of the story, and seeing them being filmed was just surreal. But nothing. I don't know. The script in Sturt was the side of inspiration stimulus for Homer, I reckon, for me.
I actually only read the first book after I was handed the script, and to read the following 6 books, I feel like would be preemptive. And I think that, you know, she doesn't know what's coming, she doesn't know what's happening. So for me to take on board the fact that in episode 4, or television, book 4 or whatever, this happens as a result of this. Like, I think that it's important to kind of just take it as it comes. Otherwise, it's too overwhelming. Even reading the first book in conjunction with the script was overwhelming, because themes that are in the book aren't explored in the film, and vice versa. But yeah.
Well, look, thanks very much, guys. I think those answers were really good, and we've had a really good opportunity to ask some good questions. Would you mind if we took some more pictures?
That's
some of
fine.
the-
Yeah.
So, whoever wants to, have their picture taken with the stars.
Sure.
We'll never get another opportunity like this.